Compound movements followed by isolation work is the best way to get jacked quickly. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. So for some reason, this is something we have to bring up because it becomes a point of controversy, and it really shouldn't. This has been repeatedly time proven for generations, and it has been proven in the lab to be true, okay? And when people argue otherwise, I'm sorry, they're flat wrong, and I'll give you the ones that are completely wrong. The people who say, oh, we only need big compounds, you just do these, you'll be fine. Or then the people who talk about pre-exhaustion and stuff. Let me be clear. The pre-exhaustion one, let's just debunk it really quick. This has been studied in the lab. Every time it has ever been looked at, it caused less muscle growth. Let me state that again. Every time it has been tested in the lab to where you do an isolation movement, then a compound, it always causes less muscle growth in the reverse, every single time. Now, that being said, people say, but this bodybuilder recommends it. I have never met in my life a bodybuilder who got good results doing it who used less than 2 grams a week of anabolics. That's the minimum threshold I have ever observed. Now, I could be wrong, that's just my anecdote. But when it doesn't work in the lab, and it hasn't worked historically before large amounts of gear were introduced, that should tell you something. And it makes sense that they can get away with it because metabolic fatigue can become the primary pathway to large amounts of muscle growth in that case, okay? So be clear on that. Of course, it's causing lots of fatigue. But when it's been tested, we know it doesn't work. It always causes slightly less growth, okay? Always causes slightly less growth. Whereas in the other end, what we find, right? So example, you see me right here doing a dumbbell incline press for my chest and upper chest, and then you see me do some tricep extensions. All right, what's been found in the lab to be true for tricep growth? A press followed by an extension has always produced the most overall tricep growth, okay? When it's been looked at, it causes more growth than just pressing does, and it causes more growth than when just an extension is done. And it's in different heads, meaning because pressing in general tends to work the lateral and medial heads more, and extensions tend to work the long head more, right, which is the biggest of the three. The other two are the two smaller ones. Causes a little bit different growth. When they're combined together, you get really, really, really good growth. But what ends up happening is that if you work the others first, everything gets shortchanged because then your chest and everything gets shortchanged. So generally what you want to do your big movements that work the most overall muscle, allow us to do heavy loading, okay? And then what? Then you come in and isolate the stuff that needs the isolation. You pick movements that maybe work those muscles a little bit different. And not every muscle is going to need it. You know, for example, you'll see the same thing coming up. You'll see me do some dumbbell rows followed by curls, okay? In that case, I'm looking at it going, well, my lats don't need the extra work. I have better lats than I do arms. My back is pretty dang jacked. My arms need more work. So it makes sense to do that. You know, I don't need to come in and isolate my lats any further. Although I do some pullovers and that helps a little, right? But I do those on my chest and tricep day. So, you know, from this perspective, this works. And it has always been found to be true. Is we take the big exercises and work down. Now, a lot of times people will say, well, when we do certain full body, does it make sense sometimes to do curls before squats? Well, yeah, if you want bigger arms, because when you get late into a workout, those muscles get more fatigued by the nervous system does, so they get recruited less. But non-novices really shouldn't be doing full body. I mean, if we're going to be objective, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. So you're generally going to be working the same muscles. And so therefore, if we're split up in such a way to where, you know, we're training back and biceps and all that together, most of those movements overlap. It makes sense to do it that way, okay? It makes sense to, obviously, because the same muscles are being worked. You know, a dumbbell row works the biceps. Is it a great bicep builder? No, but it does build them. It doesn't build them like a curl does. Whereas with the tricep extension, the presses do work certain parts of the tricep more than the extension does, at least when you look at it in the lab. So that combination makes even more sense in that regard. But, you know, we come over to something like a row than a curl. Well, Curls in general make the whole bicep grow more than a row does. This has again been demonstrated under laboratory conditions. We know that's the case, right? It's like so you always tell people you're never going to build great biceps without curls unless you're just genetically gifted in the arm department, in which case you can get away with a lot of different stuff. And you do see those people. But we come back over to this point. If you follow a different pattern than what I've described, you're simply going to get suboptimal results. Doesn't mean you can't get results. And we come back to the other. Can you build good muscle still if you do triceps and then you bench press or do chest presses? Sure, but you're going to gain less muscle. Okay? The same thing, especially when people talking about doing curls and then doing their lats. That's a real good way to have no back. Okay, I can tell you right now, for 90% of people, you're not going to build your back doing that. You just wasted your time. You probably should have just made it an arm day and not bothered with your lats at that point. Okay, just calling it like it is. But by that same token, the people who are like, you only need big compounds. Been my experience, it's a good way to have no biceps. It's one reason I'm still playing catch up with my biceps. I did that for years as a power lifter and just neglected curls. End result, my arms ended up being smaller than they should, and I had a massive back. Now I have to play catch up, and I've been playing catch up. Still not quite there yet. So again, when you start deviating away from this, it's just not going to be as effective. So this is why, we tell guys, even novices, you probably better throw in some curls in. Do some barbell curls. Come and do some straight bar curls, with a barbell. Even from day one, probably not a bad idea, right? Because most of them, they're only going to be doing rows and everything for it. So this is how this applies more to the novice, right? Still come in and say, you know what? Even if you're doing some rows and other stuff, you should probably do some curls. Otherwise, you're going to end up with T-Rex arms. You're not going to be happy about it. But conversely, this applies to more advanced lifters too. Don't get caught up in this pre-exhaustion nonsense. It has only been effective for guys on very large amounts of stuff for the most part. And even then, we could argue that they still might have gotten better results doing the other. We just don't know. Maybe there's a point where if they use enough stuff, the fatigue just all adds up, causes growth no matter what they do. But even then, the best champions, even in those circles, have still always done the other. They've always done it the other way successfully. And it makes sense because it's what we see happen in the lab also. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.